All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Thursday, April 10th, and we are excited to have everyone here for our Empowerment Congress Homelessness Working Group meeting. We hope you enjoyed the slideshow with information about our Empowerment Congress mission, vision, and guiding principles. I am going to go ahead and drop today's agenda in the chat. Okay. All right. So this evening, first, we'd like to welcome everyone. I have gotten so used to and so spoiled about seeing everybody twice a month. And I know last month we only met once. So welcome back. We hope you had a fantastic month. As you'll recall, before we jump into our agenda for today, I'd love to do some quick 10-second introductions with just your name and the organization that you're joining us from. So I'll go ahead and get started, and then we can popcorn it over. My name is Rhea, and I am the co-chair of our Empowerment Congress Homelessness Working Group. I am going to pass it to Supervisor MRT.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. We welcome you all to what is undoubtedly going to be another informative opportunity to address the defining moral crisis in our county and this region. And we recognize the challenges with which it is confronted, yet we remain undeterred. With that, I'm going to popcorn to Coach Ron.
Oh, here I am. Thanks,
All right.
everybody. Coach
Yeah.
Ron, CEO of Skid Row Community Cleanup Tour, cleaning up Skid Row, one encampment at a time. Who's next? I can't see. Anybody can help me?
How about Eleanor Vaughn? Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to be back. I'm a former board member of the Empowerment Congress, and I still keep track of what's going on with the Congress, and just wanted to pop in and say hello. So it's good to see everybody.
Great.
Thank you for joining us and welcome back. Let's pass it to Jennifer Gill.
Good afternoon. I just came back from a 12-mile bike ride, so I'm kind of sweaty. And I live over at MacArthur Park in the Council District 1.
Awesome. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. And please feel free to put a few of those miles to my name.
Okay.
Thanks for working out for all of us too. I hope you had a great bike ride. All right, we will pass it over to Jennifer. Would you like to popcorn it to someone, or would you like me to pick?
How about let's see, Mr. T?
Oh, Supervisor MRT already went.
Oh, no, sorry. Okay, Eleanor Vaughn.
All right, Eleanor also introduced herself. Third time's a charm, Jennifer. How about Larry Bailey?
Good evening, everyone. This is Larry Bailey. I'm CEO of International Executives. I've sat in with the Board of Trustees for Los Angeles prior, dealing with the homelessness a few years back, and I've been working, over about 15, 17 years or so throughout LA and stuff and addressing the issues.
Thank you so much for joining us. Larry, who would you like to pass it to? Oh, Larry, you're muted.
How about Mary Jones?
All right.
Good evening. I'm Mary Jones. I am a retired county city employee, Team MRT, Empowerment Congress for 30 plus years. And I will pass it to Nicole.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Thompson, and I am with Community Empowerment and Resource Consultants. We have transitional and permanent housing.
Thank you,
And
Nicole.
should I pass it to Dalila?
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Dalila Sotelo. I'll be speaking with you guys today. I'm on the board of the California Housing Finance Agency, and I've known the supervisor now coming on a long time. So I'm really happy to be here, you know, at the Empowerment Congress and sharing with you a little bit of what I've got to learn over the years.
Thank you,
And
Dalila.
thank you. And how about Helena Williams?
Hello, I'm Helena Williams, and I am a member of Lincoln Memorial United Church of Christ, which is in CD8, and I'm also chairperson for the Galen and Kathy Regal Center for Community Empowerment. And one of the many things that we do is support individuals who were previously homeless and are now living in apartments. We supply them with health education and with other household materials that they may not be able to afford. Thank you for that. And I will popcorn it over to Janice. Janice's iPhone.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Janice Martin, Ecumenical Liaison with the Empowerment Congress. And Rhea, I'll let you choose the next person. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Janet. I think we have Won. Am I pronouncing your name right?
It's one,
One, apologies.
like the number. Yes, yes.
All right.
I'm AJ1, author, Empowerment Congress member, and active listener. I'm the youngest one of the group, so the least popular. But I'm here to gather the information, learn the education, the engagement, the empowerment, all the time.
Well,
Thank you for joining us, One.
welcome, one. I told you the last time you were here that you're not younger than I am, but we'll see.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All day,
Absolutely.
all day.
All day effort.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, One, are you calling us old?
No, not at all.
I prefer to hope that it's the older I get, the wiser I get, but that's
Back, Madam
TBD.
Chair, don't provoke the crowd.
All right, I will pass it to Suzette Shaw.
Good evening, everyone. Suzette Shaw, Skid Row resident. I write, talk, and advocate Skid Row from a woman's perspective. Good evening. Good evening, MRT. Good to see you. Blessings to you.
Thank you always. Thank you.
Thank you,
I see the
Suzette.
name Raquel has she spoken yet?
No.
Raquel, are you there?
Yes, trying to figure out this microphone. Hey, Dalila, I see you're on here. Raquel, I worked with you at Concerned Citizens. Hey there.
Hey.
So Raquel Jamerson, I'm not joining because of any business, just a concerned citizen, but I work for the City of Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks, have been here over 20 years, have worked in all kinds of different fields, housing, affordable housing. I'm in childcare now with the little ones from ages 3 to 5, but we have a lot of unhoused individuals who are surrounding our area around the child care. We're encompassed by state property, city property, RAP property, etc. So we deal with a lot of jurisdictions. So I need help around that. And I assist other organizations helping with veterans, getting them housing and unhoused as well.
Thank you, Raquel.
Mhm.
Thank you for all that you do as well. Linda and then Angela.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda. I am also a concerned citizen as well. I'm not affiliated with any organizations at this time. I've worked for many nonprofits with LA County and private non-profit organizations that one in particular that was providing housing for homeless people. And so I'm always concerned about helping people. I'm semi-retired. So I'm just trying to see if this is a good fit for me and just getting the information to see how to move forward with it. But it's definitely something that concerns me. Just I'm sure it concerns everyone else here because we have a serious issue with homelessness in California.
Well, welcome to the family, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank
Linda,
you
it's
for
a good
joining
fit
us.
for you.
Yes.
Angela? Okay. And I see Joyce Lewis just joined us. Joyce, would you like to introduce yourself? We're sharing our names and the organization that we're with, and then we will get started with the rest of our meeting.
Hello, hi, my name is Joyce Lewis, and I'm from California, and I'm a concerned citizen. I don't live in the LA area, but however, I am concerned about issues with the homeless and, things that affect, the people. So this is why I'm involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Where in our Golden State are you joining us from?
Right now I currently live in Samoa, California, Northern California.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for the introductions. I hear a lot of us sharing that we're concerned citizens, and at the EC Homelessness Working Group, we definitely all are, and we appreciate your participation in this continued marathon to end what my favorite supervisor, Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas, always shares is the moral crisis of our time. As we get started with this meeting, I would also like to share about a recap of our March 13th meeting. I think it addressed some of the concerns that we all continue to face. And at that meeting, Veronica Lewis from Hopix joined us and shared more about the work that Hopix is participating in, as well as highlighting their participation in the LA County Anti-Racism, Diversity, Inclusion Initiative, and what Hopix is doing to address homelessness, as well as the concomitant factors related to homelessness, including systemic racism. And so we hope that this meeting also continues to draw on all the themes that we've been addressing this year. We know that there is a lot going on in the space of homeless services, homelessness, homeless systems right now in Los Angeles, including the city, the county, the state, the nation. I have a fantastic publication that I would like to highlight that addresses a lot of these issues and provides a very robust perspective, and that is Praxis. Praxis was developed, implemented, and continues to be spearheaded by Supervisor MRT, and I promise you it will become your go-to and favorite periodical on all things homelessness, to keep up with everything going on in the space of homelessness from a local, state, and federal perspective. I encourage everyone to please subscribe to Praxis if you haven't yet. If you would like to, you can always please add your email in the chat, and we will make sure to note that and get you on our Praxis list. With that, I would like to pass it over
I want to
to
thank you. I had no idea where that was coming from. So I do
Oh.
actually read it. And so I just want to say thank you. I'm like, oh, so you're the one who's sending that to me. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
that's Supervisor MRT.
Thank you
And
again, MRT, as always.
And the Supervisor, what is the initiative, the community for through which Praxis is supported?
Is the Empowerment Congress.
Yes.
forward to adopt it, and the able publication happens through the great work of Janice F. Martin, who spoke earlier and introduced herself. So it's a joint effort, and I'm going to ask Rhea or Janice to drop it into the chat. Everyone on this call should be subscribing to Praxis. All right.
Thank you, Supervisor. With that, may I pass it to you to introduce our amazing speaker this evening, please?
Delighted to do so. Getting a little, all right. Dalila indicated that we've known each other for a good stretch of time. She did not specify. I'm not reluctant to do so, and I'm not going to blow my cover with doing it. Let's simply say we've known each other for at least a solid 20 years. I'm on target, Dalila.
Yes, yes.
Serving as the Senior Development Executive at the Integral Group since 2016. She was principal at the Sotelo Group before that time, and served in multiple positions with the Community Redevelopment Agency, sometimes often known as CRA, in the city of Los Angeles. And she was deputy chief executive officer and held significant positions in operations. She moved through the public sector and the private sector, vice president at McCormack Baron Salazar, and background in finance, strong background in housing, strong background, and reference was made earlier to her work with concerned citizens of South LA. And the record will reflect that she earned her undergraduate degree in public policy from Occidental College, one of the hidden jewels in this region. And we delight in the fact that Dalila is here with us tonight to share her perspective on the issues at hand. Dalila, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. And always it's a pleasure to see you. And I appreciate all the work that you've done in this area of housing and become such a leader, a thought leader, as well as a moving mountains leader when it comes to housing issues. So I appreciate the introduction.
Indeed.
And just as a note, I was a research intern at Occidental College when you were working on the new majority back at 1010. Southern California, I mean SCLR. So
yeah, right.
Just a minute. So thank you very much. Today I wanted to spend some time talking about something that should be unquestionable as access to clean water and as access to education, and that is access to housing. I believe that housing is not a privilege. It's not even a commodity, but it really is a human right. My unique perspective is that not only as a board member of CalHFA, but as an Angelino, I've been a houser all of my career. I started back in the 90s at Concerned Citizens of South LA. I still drive by Central Avenue and 27th Street where I see my first project, where Jimmy Carter helped us cut the ribbon when he had started Habitat for Humanity and wanted to come to what we all used to call South Central Los Angeles and see how we were pioneering the implementation of affordable housing in community. So as the supervisor mentioned, I've also had the privilege of working in the private sector as well as the public sector for the redevelopment agency. So my perspective is unique in the sense that I've not only been out there asking for money to build housing, but I've been the one who has helped allocate over $250 million over the life of my career to provide housing. And I struggle to say, but it hasn't been enough. You know, I'm now on the back end of my career, and I feel like, you know, the housing that I've helped to build just isn't enough. We're still struggling in California, and we're still struggling with homelessness. And Los Angeles in particular has been the epicenter of what I call a crisis. You know, over the last years, you know, we've evolved in our thinking around how to help house individuals. We've evolved from the sense of everybody gets a temporary shelter and that's it, to a more sustainable solution, which we in the industry call permanent supportive housing, or PSH for short. So you'll hear a lot of acronyms out there in the world, but PSH is one of the more important ones, because PSH, permanent supportive housing, is just not providing, it's just not about providing a roof over someone's head, but it's about really creating stability and dignity and an opportunity. It combines affordable housing with essential services like mental health care, substance abuse treatment, job training. And really the goal of permanent supportive housing is to break the cycle of homelessness, not just on a temporary bandage for it, but actually long-term. So as an industry, we've been trying to work on permanent supportive housing with what we call wraparound services. And Los Angeles has been a leader in the movement, right? Thanks to initiatives like the Proposition HHH, which the voters approved over 10 years ago. Los Angeles has collected and allocated $1.2 billion to build supportive housing in the city. And that has been a significant increase to the available housing units, you know, in and around the city of Los Angeles. And programs like Home Key, which was just recently approved, it's also about repurposing motels into housing, which expand the reach of permanent supportive housing. So, for example, HHH, over the course of 10 years, has built nearly 10,000 new units of housing. It really was challenging those first 3 years, and as recently as last month, there were still 4 projects that had not finished construction under the HHH program that's administered by the Housing Department. But you know, it was a slow start, right? We didn't start seeing housing come up from HHH until 2021, where the first 1,000 units were completed. And the challenge with that HHH program is that the average cost of each of those units is somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 per unit. It takes a lot of money to build those units, right? And oftentimes people ask, why does it cost so much to build that one efficiency unit, a studio unit, a 1-bedroom unit, when you can build a home for $500,000? Well, if we had, you know, expansive space to do that, maybe that would be a solution, right? But the solution has been to continue to build apartments to provide housing for the unhoused. The Home Key program, which is a statewide initiative, that one launched by that was launched to really try to convert existing housing, right, in motels, hotels, and other buildings that already existed in an effort to reduce the cost of building new. That has helped, right? So the program was expanded under Proposition 1, which was approved by the voters, and it has $2.2 billion in funding under that program. And it's allocated to develop housing for veterans and for individuals experiencing homelessness. And it's about a way to really look at housing development in a speedy and efficient manner, so that cities can quickly create housing opportunities as opposed to waiting for a long planning initiative, a long construction period, you know, a long financing period to actually get the units online. The average project that the city finances or that the county finances that is for permanent supportive housing takes about 3 years from start to finish. That's too long, right? People are living on the streets for way too long. That's too long. So the Home Key program endeavors to do the same by repurposing buildings and repurposing even old office buildings and making that construction period a 12-month period. So all of these efforts, right, and I talk about billions of dollars, not just millions, but billions of dollars. It hasn't been enough, right? Despite these efforts, the crisis remains severe. California has the highest homeless population in the country. We have over 170,000 people experiencing homelessness, and nearly 1/3 of them live in Los Angeles. There are so many reasons why this crisis exists. Skyrocketing rents, stagnant wages, mental health challenges, and just basically systemic barriers that keep people trapped in poverty. At its core, it's just too many people in Los Angeles cannot afford a place to live. And the worst of it happens, you know, when people have multiple challenges, right? They have a mental health challenge, they have a drug addiction challenge, you know, they have no opportunity for a job. When you have multiple situations, the last thing that you need is high rents, right? You can't handle all of those challenges. So without stable housing, it's a catch-22, because without stable housing, people struggle to find jobs, they struggle to access healthcare, and they really struggle to rebuild their lives, right? The streets are becoming a revolving door where people cycle in and out of temporary shelters, and they never find a permanent solution. So one of the missions of my career has been to look at it from not only the practice of building housing, but really the policies of what we can do to build housing, right? And how do we expand permanent supportive housing that has proven to be an investment not just in building, but in people, right? We're really investing into the long-term sustainability and future of people that live in permanent supportive housing. And studies show that permanent supportive housing reduces homelessness long-term, it improves health outcomes, and ultimately saves taxpayer money by decreasing the reliance on emergency services and even in some cases jails, right? So it's a proven method. It's just, how do we make it so that we can do better, right? And we can do it quicker and we can do it more efficiently. So some of the examples that I wanted to kind of point out for the group, and, you know, raise your hands if I'm going too fast on this, but, you know, Houston, Texas has been the leader in housing first approach, which means it prioritizes people into housing before addressing other challenges like employment and mental health. They basically get folks off of the streets, out of their cars, and then wrap services around them after they've stabilized in a housing unit. They basically have revamped the entire focus on permanent housing to make it permanent housing rather than shelter housing. And so Houston has been able in the last 10 years to cut their homelessness numbers in half, because what happens is they stabilize a person into shelter that's permanent, and then they wrap services around and provide whatever is needed for that person's success. Minnesota has developed housing support, which is a program that provides rental assistance and supportive services to individuals experiencing homelessness. It's an initiative that has helped thousands of people transition from the streets to stable housing while receiving necessary health care and employment support. So what they do, instead of building and waiting for the building process to happen, they work with the individual to provide housing assistance for the person to find their own housing, or they work with them to find their housing. And then in the new housing situation, then they provide the services. And it becomes an outpatient type of case management system, so that they're not depending on the need to build new housing in order to start helping people. And New York City, right? New York City has been a long-term leader in affordable housing for decades now. And their version is that folks with mental health conditions are their priority. And so New York Agreements is a program that they created where they've developed thousands of units dedicated to people experiencing chronic homelessness, which is not just someone who has recently become homeless or is couch surfing, but someone who has comorbidity issues like health and mental health struggles and or substance abuse issues, and has exacerbated their condition of being homeless. So they identify the most need, the people most in need, and address that population first as a priority, and then make sure that stability that is stabilized. That's challenging, right? Because that means that if we have 75,000 people in homelessness, we're having to evaluate which one has the highest acuity to prioritize their health and their stability first before approaching anybody else. And so Los Angeles has kind of straddled that approach and created some pilot programs that have actually prioritized the chronically homeless individuals in a way to address their needs first before expanding into someone who has just recently become homeless, for example. So those are kind of examples of the pros and cons of programs that have worked in other large jurisdictions. Washington State is a great example of how people have been have received case management services from living in a car all the way to eventually being able to buy a home and stabilize their family. And they have followed folks over a 10-year trajectory to see how they have been able to stabilize, and how the assistance that they've received from the social service agencies, the various social service agencies, have been a true success. Their problem is less than our problem, right? So they're able to do that. But what these examples show is that when cities and states commit to permanent housing solutions, there is a reduction in homelessness, and there is an improvement in public health and safety. One of the challenges that Los Angeles has had is that, there was a lot of repercussions from COVID, and the instability that COVID created. It has now exacerbated the affordability problem in Los Angeles. So, we have to do more. We have to change the narrative that housing is not a privilege reserved for the wealthy or reserved for someone who has a stable job, but it's a basic human right. And how do we, as a society, as a community, as a a, a public agency like the California Housing Finance Agency, how do we participate in that? How do we advocate for policies that prioritize housing, and how we can support local organizations that are working on the ground, doing this work? And how do we challenge the stigma that surrounds homeless individuals, and recognize that every person deserves a place to call home, and really someone that that is not defined by where they live, but rather who they are as an individual. So, you know, part of what the Empowerment Congress does, and what I'm so impressed by, is that it does engage at the local level, right? That it does bring organizations together, and it brings thought leaders together to think about what our role and what our responsibilities are to those that are less fortunate than we are, right? And how do we participate in public forums to represent advocacy and to coalesce around policy changes that will impact how money is allocated to organizations. Everything that you see in the news right now with the Los Angeles Housing Services Authority, right? That LAHSA is known as LAHSA. All that is very challenging and scary because it changes the narrative and it makes it seem like it's a problem to provide public financing to projects and to services. When in reality, it's not about you know, any individual or any organization to carry the full burden of providing permanent supportive housing for people that need it. So, you know, part of our part of the discussion that we have at the policy level is what kind of controls we can put in place to ensure that the money that's being generated through these various propositions are actually connected and actually put into practice and put directly into services and or put directly into housing units and building units. So what I want to hear from folks today, not only your questions, but really your suggestions about what would help you as community leaders understand the issues that the state faces when it comes to investing in developing housing, and what can we as the stewards of public resources do to protect you know, the perception that dollars are being used appropriately and how to use those dollars, right? Is it the right thing to continue to try to build housing that takes up to 3 years to do? Or are we doing the right thing by trying to convert obsolete buildings, you know, into permanent supportive housing within 12 months? Or should we put all our money into services and help the mental health system and the healthcare system shore up what they need so that we can stabilize folks from that perspective? So this is really for me an opportunity for dialogue and an opportunity that through your questions we can maybe get some important suggestions about how to, you know, change our policies to be better.
Thank you, Dalila. Thank you so much. And thank you for all that you do and for, you know, adding organized context to this information and the crisis that we're all trying to address and hopefully alleviate. As we get started in our Q&A section and sharing comments, I know we have a big group and we all are very passionate. So I'm going to ask everybody, we're going to limit each comment to 45 seconds max so that we can allow for everybody to share their insights and questions with Dalila. So if you'd like to raise your hand, please. Dalila, is it okay if we get started with that piece?
Yes, please.
All right.
So
And
my
I've seen
hand
some
was raised. You
comments
said
in
that you would
the
come to me,
chat as well.
if I remember correctly in the chat. My hand
Sorry?
was raised. My hand was raised. You said you'd come to me.
Sure. All right. Would you like to
Suzette
kick us
Shaw?
off, Suzette? And then
Yes.
we will pass it to Reba. So 45 seconds starts now.
So, good evening, Miss Sotelo, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm a Skid Row resident. I actually live in a permanent supportive housing building here in Skid Row, and I have for several years now. Since 2016, I lived in my permanent supportive housing building. I moved from a studio apartment into my artist loft on the same floor, the same building approximately 2 years ago. And I lived in several forms of transitional housing prior to that. I've seen a great deal in regards to what permanent supportive housing supposedly is supposed to be about and what it actually looks like when you're actually living inside of it. Those are two different things, right? And 45 seconds is not going to allow me to, give the same type of presentation that you may be able to give as someone advocating and doesn't necessarily live in the housing. What I will say though is that Los Angeles does practice housing first model. However, they do not do it to fidelity. They only have implemented 11 of the 38 action plans, and therefore the program is literally like a reactionary as opposed to being very proactive. There's lots of flaws within permanent supportive housing, a lot. And yes, everyone has a right to housing. Nevertheless, I do not feel that everyone should be under the same roof. Permanent supportive housing has, HUD has a guideline as far as moving on. Those of us who are actually trying to heal and move our lives forward should have that right to do so, and with the harm-informed environment for us as well, especially as a woman and a trauma survivor. So I have a lot more to say, but I'm not going to try and do it within a lot of 45 seconds when I actually need more like 2 minutes. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzette.
You said a lot, Suzette.
You know me, MRT. I'll do what I do.
We got it. We got it. And it was good.
And congratulations, and this is about keeping the implementers of a program, honest, right? If we're only implementing 11 of the 38 points, then the whole program doesn't work, right? That's less than a third.
Thank you.
Reba?
Yes, Dalila, thank you so much for being here today. And you covered so many different areas. So in my 45 seconds, I want to say thank you. And I would like to advocate in this space for more opportunities with you, perhaps days of dialogue, to really take a look at Proposition 1 that is going to soon be rolling out, this new county department that's going to happen. There's so much new to come. And I think that there's an opportunity to get in front of it based on all the knowledge in which you have and have brought. And so I would hope that Empowerment Congress would honor days of dialogue with Dalila so that we together can perhaps make some recommendations. Thank you so very, very much.
Excellent idea, Reba.
I would welcome that.
I concur.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Reba. Jennifer?
Hi, yes. Dalila, it was really interesting listening to you. And I have a kind of a question dealing with Skid Row. And I was happy to hear of a person living in permanent supportive housing there. And I was wondering if Skid Row has any kind of like a total administration or a campus-like situation where it's not so isolated, like the buildings are not so isolated or the services are not so isolated, but there's a lot of communication between all of those entities there. And I'm wondering if a campus idea has been considered down there.
Well, I can answer that question and let you know there's currently one being formed.
Oh, is there? Okay. Would there be any way I could talk with you? No? Sure. Oh, I'm sorry, you're muted. You're muted. Yeah, I didn't hear.
I think she's saying yes.
Ma'am, I'll reach out to you directly under in the chat, okay? Thanks.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll put mine in there too.
I also know of another campus that's being built in East Hollywood, Vermont, and Beverly. There's approximately 4 projects going up right now, and it's located by the PATH Center. So PATH has about 3 developments out there, and they provide services at the PATH buildings. And the new buildings will also have, it's like a campus of services. And that one has a little bit more of a spectrum of housing. The idea that someone is able to to stabilize, and get a job, and whatever the stability means for that person, to then have them leave and transition out is really hard. So like Miss Shaw had the good forethought to be able to move from a studio into a loft within the same community. There are people that want to stay within the same community that they've built and they've stabilized in. So one of the things that this new campus is doing is giving people the opportunity that as they increase income, they will still have an affordable place to live. They would just move to, another floor, another building, and create that same community within the same campus.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dalila.
When
Thank
we
you for your
say, when we
questions.
say
and-
campus, how large are these campuses at Skid Row or in East Hollywood?
The East Hollywood one is approximately 16 acres.
16, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and so not housing first, but
Yeah, but
more comprehensive.
more comprehensive, right?
Some of us.
I don't know about Skid Row.
How large is one at Skid Row, Suzette?
Suzette, you're muted. Suzette, can you hear us?
Thank you. I apologize. I couldn't find the unmute button, but that is not what I was speaking of. No, we don't have anything being built like that. When I say that there's a campus being built, there's a campus that's being built where it's going to have wraparound services where people can go to for every type of services, not where people will live, but where there will be all types of wraparound services. There's different buildings being built right now, but the problem is that we're pitting people in the housing first Skid Row, the housing first model, but then most of people who are moving in are heavily drug addicted. And when I say heavily drug addicted, like it's literally we're putting all this money and taking all this money to build these homes, to build these buildings, but then you should come in and see for yourselves what ends up happening when you bring drug addicts into buildings when they're not ready to move into a permanent supportive housing building. You should come in and see the apartments that get burned down by drug addicts who really need to be in a treatment program and need mental health services along with treatment, as opposed to having a closed door and being by themselves where they're only engaging in more and more drug addiction, and there's cartels in the communities. So there's a lot going on. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's what you're saying, Suzette, is what I was thinking about. We have it over here in MacArthur Park too. We have one building called Coronado Inn, and it's sort of like that, and then we had a big fire right behind it, and the building's now going to be demolished behind it. And then there's, the Mayfair Hotel, and it's sort of like that too, where you can't figure out what's going on in there. I'm afraid to go in, but I'm going to go in one day.
Well, I mean, and I'll just lastly say, imagine as a trauma survivor living next door to someone who is a SHRM addict and dealer in your building and keeping you up all night because he keeps a 55, his speakers at 55 and above while, you're trying to sleep, and then also tells you he'll have you assassinated in the elevator and calls you everything but a child of God. That's the reality of permanent supportive housing. That's the reality.
So that's really, I really want to talk with you a lot, Suzette. I'm working with another coalition too, so I'll tell you.
Myself. Someone can mute me, please.
Yeah, I think that
both. Sure.
I think just to answer Ms. Suzette, I think that when an organization, when a nonprofit who builds housing doesn't have the property management, the trifecta of property management services and ownership working together, it all falls apart, right? That it has to be the coordinated entry system, which is the system by which over the last 5 years, new projects have been using the coordinated entry system to better coordinate among the various agencies how to best support a new resident. And I think that those challenges definitely exist, but it's not just the fault of the owner or the fault of the building. It's really the lack of coordination among the property management company with the social service agency, with the owner.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dalila. Thank you, Jennifer. I see your hand still raised.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
I think we've got
Um,
Miss Janice or Miss
yes.
Victorian.
Okay,
Janice and then Velvet, and I have a question too, please.
good evening, Delilah, and thank you again for the information. Relative to the question that you asked about what should we do, just a little feedback, just thinking that the net, it would be great if the net was broader in terms of the types of housing that was being provided, at least from the community standpoint at the ground where I am. I'm not clear. It could be happening, but I'm just not sure. And when I say the types of housing, I mean that there are so many vacant lots in the inner city where I live, and some of them are owned by nonprofits, some of them are owned by private entities, maybe families where a house burned down and the lot just sits there. Would love to see maybe a couple of or a few tiny homes there, tiny houses, whatever you want to call it, not the massive projects like they have in the valley. Would be interested in seeing something that allows for scattered sites like that, maybe even with faith institutions. Would be interested in seeing some kind of a program that reaches out to individuals, particularly nonprofits, who have houses that they use for other purposes because they don't have the finances to refurbish them or restore them and put and fold them back into the marketplace. So would like to see that. They have the property, but they don't have the resources to bring it up to standard. And then finally, because I've had this conversation, I'd love to see a relationship with Habitat for Humanity, who has a vision for doing that and a mission for doing that all the time. And you talked about working with Jimmy Carter, and so I know you understand that, but they have the ability, if they ramp up, to do this rapidly. And then obviously ADU conversions, because those happen in a matter of months as opposed to a number of years. It seems to me that brick and mortar is great, but doing all of this at once would be terrific because we'd be able to get more people inside. And I'm sure there's some kind of covenants or relationships that can occur so that government gets its money back. But it's, from my view, it just seems like the perspective is limited. But I don't know because I'm not in those conversations. But thank you for listening.
Yeah, you're right on point. We have only been using one model, for the last 20 years, building in apartment buildings. We've now switched to adaptive reuse of obsolete office buildings and motels and hotels. But the idea of ADUs, the idea of tiny homes, the idea of creating community, while still, giving individuals, an individual unit is important. So absolutely, that's very important feedback, and I like that idea.
Thanks, Dalila. Velvet?
Hi, everyone. I really want to see more homeless prevention. And I have been on Skid Row. I could only stay there for 90 days. And I went down there specifically to get a housing voucher. And I could tell immediately that I had to knock on people's door every day. I had to really force them to give me housing. I really did. And it was through the Department of Mental Health. That's where I started because something told me that that I could get myself some help and that I could also get housing through them. So, but anyway, since that time, I've sued 7 landlords. And I really believe nationwide, we need to start charging landlords and slumlords and enforce the code and put more money into the system. I cannot understand why cities, if I showed y'all some of these houses here in Little Rock, apartment complexes with the windows still knocked out, they didn't got money, but they didn't fix the property. And the same thing, I got so many pictures of different buildings. I lived in California where I left because they wouldn't fix the property. So I think that if we start enforcing the code charging these slumlords, the money could add up. And I just don't understand why, in nationwide, we allow landlords not to have any pride in ownership. And like the situation you're talking about, Suzette, ain't no reason why. I've been in them buildings. I done ran out. Some of them, I done walked in there. Some of them hotels, and I got up and looked at the cameras. I ran out right away. I said, "Oh no, I ain't going up that elevator." But really, we need to make these people fix their properties, take them. If they don't pay, put liens on them. They can get money. We sitting around letting people live like dogs. They paying. That's why I left California. I'd rather pay $500 and live like a dog in Arkansas. I'm sorry. I got tired of them taking my money. And I'm feeling like I got a chance to go to college because with all of the housing issues I've had, all I really wanted to do was go to school.
Thank you,
I
Velvet.
couldn't go to school. Thanks. But I
Thank
know y'all
you.
got a short time. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, this feedback, Rhea, has been super helpful because, and I would welcome the days of dialogue, so that we can, workshop this a little bit more. It just,
Sure.
I grew up in a in a one-bedroom apartment with my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my uncle, my grandmother. So
Mhm.
I know what it's like, to live in a situation where, it's less than ideal. But,
Sure.
we had good neighbors and we had a community and we, looked out for each other. And when my parents were working at the factory, we had a neighbor that would take care of us, at the house. So I understand, and I will always believe that housing is a human right. And,
Mhm.
but if people need assistance and if they need treatment, Rhea, you showed me this, right? If people need treatment, we got to prioritize that, right?
Yep.
We gotta meet people where they are and
Mhm.
not assume that one solution is gonna fix everything.
Sure.
This dialogue is important because we, as leaders need to understand what people are facing, and to the extent that we can help, let's help.
And Delilah, one, thank you so much for joining us. Two, I have one question, if I may, and perhaps it can be our closeout question. But as I was, I understand, I have the privilege and pleasure of knowing you, as I heard more about your experiences in this space and per your expertise. When we think about access to housing and permanent housing, in your dream world, what are kind of three solutions or pathways that, again, that you would see as ideal situation solutions to addressing this crisis and the need for increased housing?
And this comes from dialogue with you and your team, Rhea, and also from my
Mhm.
experience in the 80s and the 90s.
Sure.
I think we need to open up treatment centers again. I think that we need more stabilized mental health and, community-based facilities and treatment facilities that help people at a very real and deep and long-term level that are dealing with the causes of their homelessness, not the symptoms of the homelessness.
Sure.
So I think that's number one. I think that when, Reagan shut everything down and everybody was displaced, I think that had decades of repercussions that we've never been able to recover from. The second is I would look at the creation of housing and housing policy that creates a spectrum of opportunities. I spent 10 years of my career working on public housing and the
Mhm.
importance of developing public housing as a mixed income community, not just as a public housing community. I don't think that people need to be all ghettoized and, relegated to one building and one housing just because they are living in poverty. I think that mixed income and creating a mixed income environment where people can, interface with all kinds of levels of income and not just one perspective is critical. And I think that putting people in a 10-story high rise with morbidity profiles is very difficult. And it's very difficult for the people that live there, and it's very difficult for the people to build themselves out of poverty in that situation. So from a public policy standpoint, I'd love to see the creation of more mixed income communities.
Okay.
And then, the last one, if I had, $10 billion and
Yeah.
I had a government contract because I was a car manufacturer, I would invest in decentralizing communities, affordable housing communities. I would create housing in Santa Monica, in Beverly Hills, in Westlake. I would diversify, and economically integrate housing in all parts of the county and the city.
Sure. Well, from your mouth to policymakers' ears, and those are three fantastic solutions that seem all encompassing. So thank you again for sharing your time with us today, Dalila, for all that you do and continue to do. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone.
Of course. Thanks. You're more than welcome to stay on. We're going to wrap up shortly here. We have different types of innovative solutions, and in the chat, I am going to drop one, and I encourage everyone to please check out this resource. It is the Bob Ross Center for Hope and Healing. Many of you may know that Dr. Ross was previously the president and CEO of the California Endowment. In addition, we have an upcoming opportunity for continued engagement, and that is our Empowerment Congress Juneteenth event and festival. So we'll hope you'll join us then. We are sending out our save the date, and our event will be on June 21st, 2025. In addition, we have our next meeting on April 24th, and we are going to continue the conversation and have invited a speaker from our National Alliance to End Homelessness. So with that, Supervisor, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, we cite the Center for Hope and Healing, named in honor of Dr. Robert Ross, as a way to think aspirationally, to recognize what is, but also to look beyond what is to what can be. And so when we think about a comprehensive approach, an innovative approach, we think about affordable housing units, community service space, treatment options linked together in a very powerful way. Now, where is this? It's going to be on the parking lot behind the California Endowment itself. So this is a major project, be coming up out of the ground in not very long, but 2027 or so, maybe the time frame. But I believe more things like this can and should happen. Policymakers, leaders, implementers, decision makers have to think out of the box. The thing about Los Angeles that I just want to make people aware of. This is not a town without resources, relatively speaking. This is not a town without resources. And given the wealth in the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, I just have to say, the state of California, the 5th largest economy in the world, the county of Los Angeles, the 17th largest county in the world. I believe that it is inexcusable for us to tolerate the level of impoverishment that we experience. And I mean that in the public and the private sector as well. It is essentially a lack of imagination. It's a lack of will. And it seems to me that we have to be prepared to develop our own consciousness, educate each other around our lived experience, as well as the policy-making apparatus that's necessary. The fact that Measure A is supposed to move $1.2 billion annually, virtually unheard of in any jurisdiction throughout the nation. And so those who say we're broke, those who say woe is me, I'm not having it. All right. Just not. Can I keep it real with you?
Yes, please.
Somebody cried broke when the Martin Luther King Hospital closed. But go to 120th and Wilmington today and find fabulous things going on. Not patting oneself on the back. I'm just trying to make it plain that where there's a will, there is a way. And that campus has exceeded expectations just because we decided we were going to lean in, and the Empowerment Congress was a critical piece of that effort as well. So more good things can happen. Insist that they happen. Raise the expectations. Those who say we can't, we don't have it, tell them that the devil is a lie. We can move this agenda forward and help more people than what's currently being helped. Does that mean nothing is being done? Of course not. It doesn't mean that. But it does mean more can be done. And we have to insist that such be the case. Now, I didn't plan to go there, but when the Spirit moves, you got to follow it. Thank you, Madam.
Amen. And we sure are glad that you did go there.
Just trying to say something.
We hear you loud and clear and appreciate it. Thank you, Supervisor. Well, I can't think of a better benediction. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you on April 24th.
Thanks,
same bat
Dalila.
time, same bat channel. And thank you, Delilah. Yep.
Thank you, Delilah.
Thanks,
Delilah.
everyone.
Looking forward to that dialogue.
Absolutely. I'm there.
Down on it. Read praxis too. Ha ha.
Yes, please. All right. Thank you, Supervisor, too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.